The very moment you reach for something greater than your current grasp, you tap into power far beyond what you imagined possible. Years ago, I witnessed something extraordinary on Mount Rainier. A group of climbers, ordinary people like you and me, faced what looked like an impossible vertical wall of ice. Most would have turned back, and no one would have blamed them. But one climber, a school teacher named David, took a single step forward. Just one step. That's all it was. David had never climbed anything bigger than a flight of stairs before starting his training 6 months earlier. But there he stood at 12,000 feet, looking up at what seemed like an endless wall. One more step, he kept saying to himself. Not the whole mountain. Just one more step. Hour after hour, step by step, he moved upward. The interesting thing wasn't that he reached the summit. The miracle happened in his mind at about 13,000 feet, when he suddenly realized he had already gone far beyond what he once thought impossible. That's when everything changed. His entire view of human potential, of his own potential, shifted in that moment. He realized that his previous limits were just thoughts, just ideas he had accepted without question. And if those limits weren't real, what other artificial barriers was he accepting in his life? What barriers are you accepting in yours? Breaking records, whether on a mountain or in your daily life, isn't about superhuman strength. It's about taking that first step when others step back. It's about questioning the boundaries you've drawn for yourself. Let me tell you something that might shock you. Your brain creates limits before you ever reach them. It's like having a car with a full tank of gas, but installing an imaginary fuel gauge that reads empty halfway through. These mental barriers, these stop signs we plant in our minds, they serve a purpose. They keep us safe, comfortable, protected, but they also keep us small. A child learning to walk. If that child believed in limits, they'd give up after the first fall, but they don't. They fall dozens, hundreds of times and keep getting back up. Somewhere along the way, we lose that natural persistence. We start creating these invisible fences in our minds, saying this far, no further. Now here's what modern science tells us about human potential. Studies at the Harvard Medical School show that our brain continues forming new connections throughout our lives. They call it neuroplasticity. In simple terms, your brain is like a muscle. It grows stronger with use. When they put people under Murray machines, they discovered something amazing. The brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagined practice. That's why visualization is so powerful. Olympic athletes use it, business leaders use it, and you can use it too. But let me share something even more interesting. Researchers at the University of Colorado found that people typically use only about 65 of their actual physical capability during their best efforts. Why? Because our minds set artificial safety limits. When people were put in emergency situations, they easily surpassed what they thought was their maximum strength or endurance. Take Maria Rodriguez, a grocery store clerk from Kansas. She always wanted to start her own business, but thought she wasn't smart enough for it. One day, her daughter got sick, and the medical bills started piling up. That's when Maria stopped accepting her limits. She started selling homemade salsa at local markets while working full-time. No business degree, no startup money, just pure determination. Today, her salsa is in 200 stores across 3 states. She didn't become smarter. She just stopped believing she wasn't smart enough. Or consider Bill Porter, who was born with cerebral palsy. The doctor said he would never be able to work. Every company rejected his job applications, but Bill didn't accept those limits. He became a door-to-door salesman, even though he could barely walk and had difficulty speaking. For 40 years, he walked 8 miles a day, making sales. He became Watkins Products' top salesman in the entire country. These aren't extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are ordinary people who simply refuse to accept ordinary limits. They're people who understood a fundamental truth. Most barriers exist only in our minds. And anything that exists in the mind can be changed by the mind. The real question isn't whether you have limits. The real question is who set those limits and why are you accepting them? Fear. Let's talk about this invisible force that holds more people back than any physical barrier ever could. You know that feeling? The racing heart, the sweaty palms, the voice in your head saying, stay where you are. It's safer here. That feeling has stopped more dreams, buried more potential, and killed more opportunities than any other force on earth. But here's what most people don't understand about fear. It's not trying to hurt you. Fear is like an overprotective parent who never wants you to leave the house. It's doing its job, the same job it's done since humans first walked the earth, trying to keep you safe. The problem is we're no longer running from tigers. Our modern fears are different, but our brain's response is exactly the same. I've interviewed thousands of people about what stops them from pursuing their dreams. Want to know the most common response? It's not lack of money. It's not lack of time. It's not even lack of knowledge. It's the fear of looking foolish, the fear of failure, the fear of what others might think. Imagine that people willing to give up on their life's dreams because they're worried about the opinions of people they might never even meet. The comfort zone. Oh, how deceptive that phrase is, because there's nothing truly comfortable about it. It's just familiar. It's predictable. But let me tell you something about the comfort zone. It's shrinking. Whatever you're not actively pushing against is actually pushing back against you. Your comfort zone is like a rubber band. If you're not stretching it, it's getting smaller. I met a man named Robert in Chicago. For 15 years, he worked the same job, ate at the same restaurants, took the same route to work. He was comfortable. Then his company downsized, and suddenly his comfort zone became his prison. He had stopped learning new skills, stopped taking chances, stopped growing. His comfort zone had become so small that even simple changes felt overwhelming. But here's what Robert did next, and this is crucial. He started small. He didn't try to leap out of his comfort zone. He stepped out of it. He took a different route to the grocery store. He tried one new food each week. He spoke to one stranger each day. Small steps, but each one pushed back against those self-imposed limitations. Within 6 months, he had started his own consulting business, something that would have seemed impossible before. Let me share a technique I've seen work wonders for breaking through self-imposed limitations. They call it the 5 seconds of courage method. You don't need to be brave for the whole journey. You just need 5 seconds of courage to take the first step. Want to start a business? You don't need courage for the whole entrepreneurial journey. You just need 5 seconds of courage to make that first phone call. Want to get in shape? You don't need motivation for a year of exercise. You just need 5 seconds of courage to put on your running shoes. Here's another truth about Fruchi's power when you're stared in the face. Write down your biggest fear right now. Be specific, not just failure. What exactly are you afraid of? Now ask yourself, what's the worst that could really happen? Usually, when you break it down, the worst case scenario isn't nearly as devastating as the fear makes it seem. The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what other people think. But here's something I learned from watching successful people. Those who judge you for trying to improve your life don't deserve a vote in your decisions. Their criticism is often just a reflection of their own limitations, their own fears, their own unused potential. Every time you feel fear, I want you to remember this. On the other side of fear is everything you want. Every successful person you admire once faced the same fears you're facing now. The only difference is they felt the fear and moved forward anyway. Everything you want in life is on the other side of what makes you uncomfortable. Every single thing. Better relationships, you'll have to get uncomfortable and have honest conversations. Better career, you'll have to get uncomfortable and learn new skills, take new risks. Better health, you'll have to get uncomfortable and change your habits. The question isn't whether you'll feel fear, you will. The question is, what will you do when you feel it? Let me share with you the exact blueprint I've seen transform countless lives, including my own. These 5 steps aren't just theory. They're battle-tested strategies that work if you work them. And I promise you this, if you follow these steps exactly as I lay them out, your life will be dramatically different 12 months from now. Step 1. Identifying your current limits. Most people never get past this first step because they're not truly honest with themselves. Right now, I want you to take out a piece of paper. Draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write down everything you think you can't do. Be brutally honest. I can't start a business. I can't lose weight. I can't speak in public. Whatever your mind tells you is impossible, write it down. Now here's where it gets interesting. On the right side of that paper, write according to who. Next to each limitation, write down who told you this was impossible. Was it a parent, a teacher, a friend, or was it just you? You'll be shocked to discover that most of these limits have no real authority behind them. They're just thoughts you've repeated so often that they feel like facts. I remember working with a truck driver named Mike. He wrote down, "I can't get a college degree" on his list. When I asked him why, he said, "Because I'm not smart enough." Turns out no one had ever told him that. He had just decided it himself after struggling in high school 20 years earlier. Today, Mike has his master's degree and teaches part-time at a community college. Step 2, teaches targets. Once you've identified your supposed limits, it's time to set targets that absolutely terrify you. I'm not talking about comfortable goals. I'm talking about targets that make your palms sweat just thinking about them. But here's the key. They must be specific, and they must have a deadline. Instead of, I want to be successful, write, I want to earn $10,000 per month by December 31st. Instead of, I want to get in shape, write, I want to run a marathon in 9 months. Instead of, I want to be my own boss, write, I want to launch my online business with 3 paying clients within 90 days. Why such ambitious targets? Because small goals don't ignite your imagination, but don't force you to grow. Small goals don't wake you up at 5 a.m. burning with excitement. But be careful, your targets must still be within the realm of possibility. You won't believe you can go from $0 to $1 million in a week, but you might believe you can create a $5,000 monthly income in 6 months. Creating actionable plans, this is where rubber meets road. A goal without a plan is just a wish. Your plan needs to break down your ambitious target into weekly and daily actions. Think of it like building a house. You don't just start throwing bricks around. You start with a foundation, then go brick by brick, following a blueprint. Let's say your goal is to build a $10,000 monthly income through a consulting business. Week 1 might look like your market, and identify your ideal clients week 3, 4. Create your service packages and pricing strategy week 5, 6. Build a simple website and LinkedIn profile week 7, 8. Contact 20 potential clients per day week 9, 10. Deliver outstanding service to your first clients week 11, 12. Ask for referrals and testimonials. Each week should have specific measurable actions. Research your market is too vague. Interview 10 potential clients about their biggest challenges is specific and actionable. Building daily habits, this is the game changer. Success isn't about occasional heroic effort. It's about small actions performed consistently. Your daily habits are like compound interest for your goals. They might not seem significant on any given day, but over time, they create massive results. The key is to make these habits so small that you can't say no. Want to write a book? Start with 15 minutes of writing each morning. Want to build a business? Start with making 2 sales calls each day. Want to get in shape? Start with 5 minutes of exercise. I worked with an artist named Sarah who wanted to build an online following for her art. Instead of trying to become an overnight sensation, she committed to posting 1 piece of art every single day on Instagram. Just 1, no matter what. Rain or shine, busy or free, sick or healthy, 1 piece per day. In 18 months, she went from 100 followers to 100,000. Is a critical point about habits? Then they need triggers. A trigger is something that automatically reminds you to perform your habit. Sarah put her art supplies on her breakfast table every night. The sight of them triggered her morning art session. Want to exercise? Put your running shoes by your bed. Want to make sales calls? Set an alarm for the same time every day. Measuring progress, what gets measured gets improved. You need 3 types of measurements. Lead measures actions. Lag measures results. Course corrections are adjustments based on results. Number of sales calls made, words written, miles run. Lag measures are the results. Sales closed, pages completed, weight lost. You need both. Lead measures tell you if you're putting in the work. Lag measures tell you if the work is effective. Keep a simple daily scorecard. Track your lead measures every day. Review your lag measures weekly. This creates accountability and shows you exactly where you need to improve. A real estate agent I worked with tracked every phone call, every meeting, every follow-up. She discovered it took an average of 15 conversations to make 1 sale. This knowledge transformed her business. Instead of hoping for sales, she knew exactly how many conversations she needed each day to hit her target. Course corrections are crucial. Every 2 weeks, look at your numbers. Are you hitting your lead measures but not getting results? Then you need to adjust your approach. Are you getting results but falling behind on actions? Then you need to adjust your habits. Remember this. Your first plan probably won't be perfect. That's fine. Success is not about having the perfect plan. It's about having a good plan and adjusting it based on feedback. Let me share a secret about transcending boundaries. But progress isn't linear. You'll have days when everything works and days when nothing does. The key is to keep measuring, keep adjusting, and most importantly, keep going. Think of it like a pilot flying from New York to Los Angeles. They're off course 90 of the time, but they keep making small corrections based on their instruments. Your measurements are your instruments. They tell you when you're off course and help you adjust back toward your target. These 5 steps: identifying limits, setting targets, creating plans, building habits, and measuring progress. They work together as a system. Miss one step and the whole thing becomes less effective. But follow all 5, and you create an unstoppable force for change in your life. The question isn't whether these steps work. They do. The question is, will you work them? Let me tell you about the incredible power of small wins. Something so simple yet so profound that it has literally transformed thousands of lives. Most people fail to achieve their goals not because they aim too high, but because they underestimate the power of tiny, consistent improvements. If you improve just one each day, at the end of 1 year, you'll be 37 times better. Not 365 better, 37 times better. That's the magic of compound improvement. Most people want to skip the small wins and go straight for the big victory. But life doesn't work that way. Success is built one small brick at a time. I remember talking to Tom, a software engineer who wanted to write a novel. He kept waiting for inspiration to strike, thinking he needed large blocks of free time to write. Then he learned about the power of small wins. He started writing just 300 words every morning while his coffee brewed. That's it. Just 300 words. Seems tiny, doesn't it? But those 300 words added up to 109,500 words in 1 year, enough for 2 novels. They're not just about to understand about small wins. They're not just about the immediate result. They're about who you become in the process. Each small win rewires your brain to expect success. Each tiny victory builds your confidence. Each minor achievement proves that you're the kind of person who follows through. Let me share what happened with Linda, a retail worker who wanted to start an online business. She was overwhelmed by all the things she needed to learn: websites, marketing, sales, customer service. So we broke it down into tiny wins. Her first goal: learn to use social media for business by posting one helpful tip each day. Just one tip. She thought it was too small to matter. 6 months later, Linda had built a following of 20,000 people who loved her daily tips about organization and productivity. She hadn't set out to build a huge following. She just focused on one small win each day. Those tips turned into online courses, which turned into a consulting business. Today, she makes more in a month than she used to make in a year. The compound effect of daily actions is like a freight train starting to move. At first, it seems like nothing's happening. The train moves inches per minute. But keep adding consistent power, and soon that train becomes unstoppable. Your small daily actions work the same way. Take Marcus, a dad who wanted to lose weight. Instead of going on a crash diet, he started with one small change: drinking water instead of soda at lunch. Just lunch, not all day. After that became easy, he added another small change: parking at the far end of his office parking lot. Then another: taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Each change seemed insignificant on its own. But after 18 months, Marcus had lost 87 pounds and completed his first marathon. Here's the key to making small wins wait. You have to celebrate them. Your brain needs to link pleasure to progress. When you hit your small daily target, take a moment to acknowledge it. Let that feeling drive you to show up again tomorrow. The power of small wins isn't just about personal goals. Companies like Toyota built global empires on the principle of Kaizen, continuous small improvements. They don't try to revolutionize their production process overnight. They make tiny improvements every single day. One bolt tightened more efficiently, one unnecessary step eliminated, 1 minute saved. These small wins add up to massive advantages over time. Remember this: every major achievement in human history started with one small step. The first moon landing began with small experiments in rocket science. The internet began with simple computer networks. Your success story begins with today's small win. Don't despise these modest beginnings. Don't discount the power of tiny improvements. That small step you're hesitating to take. That's where your transformation begins. That tiny action you think won't make a difference. That's the foundation of your future success. The question isn't whether small wins work. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is, what small win will you commit to today? Let me tell you something about setbacks that might change your life. Every single success story you admire is built on a mountain of failures. The only people who never fail are the ones who never try. And right now, somewhere in your life, you're facing what feels like failure. But what if I told you that this failure might be the best thing that could happen to you? I'll never forget watching a young entrepreneur named Kevin lose his entire life savings, $150,000. In his first business venture, most people would have been crushed. Most would have given up. He sat down at his kitchen table that night and wrote down every single thing that went wrong, not to beat himself up, but to learn. He turned each failure into a lesson, each setback into strategy. Today, Kevin runs a multi-million-dollar company. And here's the interesting part. He says he wouldn't have succeeded if he hadn't failed first. That initial failure taught him more than any success could have. It wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of his education. Resilience. Most people think resilience means bouncing back from failure. But that's not quite right. True resilience isn't about bouncing back to where you were. It's about bouncing forward to somewhere better. It's about using setbacks as springboards. Take Lisa, a sales professional who lost her biggest client, 60% of her income gone overnight. Instead of panicking, she did something unexpected. She called her former client and asked for detailed feedback about why they left. That conversation revealed blind spots in her service she never knew existed. She spent the next month overhauling her entire approach. Within 6 months, she had not only replaced that income but doubled it with a more diverse client base. Here's what separates successful people from the rest. They don't just experience failure, they study it. They treat obstacles like scientists treat experiments. When something doesn't work, they don't think I failed. They think that's interesting. What can I learn from this? But I want you to try something right now. Think about your biggest recent setback. Now ask yourself these 3 questions. What did this experience make possible that wasn't possible before? What strengths did this situation reveal that you didn't know you had? What would have to be true for this setback to become an advantage? This isn't positive thinking. It's strategic thinking. Every obstacle comes with a hidden opportunity, but you have to be looking for it. You have to train your mind to ask better questions when facing setbacks. Consider Michael Jordan, cut from his high school basketball team. He used that setback as fuel, practicing longer and harder than anyone else. Or Walt Disney, fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. These weren't just setbacks. They were setups for something better. The resilience factor isn't about being tough. It's about being smart. It's about understanding that setbacks are not permanent unless you make them permanent. Every time you face an obstacle, you have a choice. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you. They don't just test you, they reveal you. They show you what you're really made of. They expose your weak points so you can strengthen them. They reveal your blind spots so you can see more clearly. They push you past your comfort zone so you can discover what you're truly capable of. Remember this. The size of your success will be determined by how you handle your failures. Small thinking sees obstacles as stop signs. Big thinking sees them as guidelines. The greatest opportunities often come disguised as insurmountable problems. Right now, you might be facing what feels like an impossible situation. But ask yourself, what if this obstacle isn't in your way? What if it is the way? What if this challenge isn't blocking your path to success, but actually creating it? The path to any worthwhile goal is never a straight line. It's a series of zigzags, detours, and apparent dead ends. But each setback, each failure, each obstacle is shaping you, teaching you, preparing you for something bigger. The question isn't whether you'll face setbacks. You will. The question is what will you do with them? Will you let them stop you, or will you let them strengthen you? Will you see them as walls, or will you see them as stepping stones? Your next move in the face of setback. That's what determines your future. Here's what I've discovered after decades of studying success. There's a formula, a specific sequence that creates lasting achievement. It's not just about positive thinking, and it's not just about hard work. It's about combining the right mindset with the right actions in the right order. Let me share this ultimate achievement formula with you. Think of it like a combination lock. All the numbers need to be right, and they need to be in the right sequence. Miss one number, turn them in the wrong order, and the lock stays closed. First, you need to understand that mindset without action is just daydreaming, and action without mindset is just busy work. The magic happens when you blend them together. It's like mixing oxygen and hydrogen. Separately, they're just gases, but together, they create water, something entirely new and powerful. The formula starts with what I call intentional identity shifting. Before you change your actions, you need to change who you think you are. If you think of yourself as someone who tries to get in shape, you'll get very different results than someone who thinks, I am an athlete. Notice the difference. One identity is about attempting, the other about being. I worked with a woman named Patricia who wanted to build a successful business, but she kept saying, I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. We shifted her identity first. She started saying, I am a business owner. Simple change, massive impact. Her decisions, actions, and even body language changed because she wasn't trying to become something. She was being something. Here's the success cycle that makes this formula work. Choose your identity consciously. Let that identity drive your beliefs. Let those beliefs guide your actions. Let those actions create your results. Let those results reinforce your identity. Each part of this cycle strengthens the others. Your results prove your identity, which strengthens your beliefs, which improves your actions, which creates better results. It's an upward spiral of achievement. But here's what makes this formula sustainable. It's not about massive changes. It's about aligning your small daily choices with your chosen identity. When you see yourself as an athlete, you naturally choose foods that athletes eat. When you see yourself as a successful business owner, you naturally make decisions that successful business owners make. I remember working with Mark, a salesman who couldn't break past his income ceiling. His problem wasn't his sales technique. It was his identity. He saw himself as someone who did okay. We shifted his identity to world-class sales professional. Suddenly, his questions changed from how do I make this sale to what would a world-class professional do in this situation. This formula creates sustainability because it's not based on willpower. Willpower runs out. Identity drives behavior automatically. When your actions align with who you believe you are, you don't need motivation. You just need to be true to yourself. You don't need willpower to brush your teeth. You do it because that's what clean, healthy people do, and that's who you are. Apply that same principle to your goals. Don't try to force yourself to study business skills. Be someone who is naturally curious about business. Don't push yourself to exercise. Be someone who moves every day because that's just what you do. The long-term sustainability comes from the compound effect of aligned identity and action. Each small win proves your identity, making the next win easier. Each setback becomes a chance to demonstrate your chosen identity, not a threat to it. Here's the beautiful part about this formula. It works in any area of life. Want better relationships? Start with the identity of someone who naturally creates deep connections. Want better health? Begin with the identity of someone who honors their body. Want more success? Adopt the identity of someone who consistently adds value to others. But remember this, the formula requires patience. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are. Give yourself time to grow into your new identity. Let your actions catch up with your vision of yourself. The question isn't whether this formula works. It does every time it's applied correctly. The question is, who will you choose to become? What identity will you step into today? Remember, the ultimate achievement isn't just reaching your goals. It's becoming the person capable of reaching even bigger goals. That's what makes this formula truly ultimate. The power to transform your life doesn't exist in some distant future or in someone else's hands. It exists in this moment, in your next decision, in your next action. Right now, as these words reach your ears, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to more of the same, the comfortable, the familiar, the predictable. The other path leads to everything you've dreamed of becoming. Here's your challenge. Take action before this feeling fades, before doubt creeps in, before your old habits pull you back. Right now, write down one bold action you'll take in the next 24 hours. Not tomorrow, not next week. Make it specific. Make it measurable. Make it slightly uncomfortable. Whether it's making that call you've been avoiding, writing the first page of your book, or taking that first step toward better health. Do it today. Because here's the truth that has echoed through the centuries. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. Years from now, you'll look back on this moment. You'll either see it as the day you started moving toward greatness, or just another day you let slip away. The choice is yours. The time is now. And I believe in you, not just in what you can do, but in who you can become. Now go make your mark on the world. Your destiny is waiting.